Ethan grew up in a quiet town where life was simple and slow. He never thought he would leave the fields and streets he knew so well, but fate had other plans for him. When he turned 20, he was called to serve in the Royal Guard. It was an honor, but also a burden. Ethan was not a man of ambition. He only wanted a life of peace, yet he could not refuse the call of duty. The palace was a world unlike his own. Its halls stretched like rivers of stone, its walls shone with golden light, and its people moved with grace and purpose. Ethan felt small among them, a common man placed in the heart of power, but he did his work with steady hands and honest eyes. Soon, the queen herself began to notice him. Queen Lyanna was young, yet carried the weight of a crown with quiet strength. Many noblemen sought her hand, each one speaking of loyalty, but dreaming of power. Lyanna listened to them with patience, but never trusted their words. She had seen how greed could hide behind pretty promises. What she longed for was truth, though in her world truth was rare. One evening, as the sun dropped low and painted the gardens in soft fire, Lyanna asked Ethan to walk with her, felt nervous, unsure why she had chosen him. They walked under tall trees and past flowers that swayed in the light breeze. The air was quiet, and for a while they spoke only of simple things. Ethan thought it was only a kind gesture from a queen to her guard. Then she turned to him, her eyes clear and direct. Without a smile, without play, she asked, "What if I married you human?" The words struck Ethan like a wave. His mouth went dry, and his heart beat so fast he thought she might hear it. He stood frozen, his mind empty of any answer. How? Was this a jest, a trial, or a secret truth hidden in plain sight? He could not tell. All he knew was that the world had shifted under his feet. Ethan wanted to speak, but no sound came. He looked at her, searching for any sign of her meaning. Her gaze did not waver. She waited as if the question mattered more than any he had ever been asked. He felt the weight of it pressing down, heavy and strange. A queen could not truly mean such words, could she? The silence grew, and Ethan feared he had already failed. He wished for simple courage, yet all he found was shock. He lowered his eyes, unsure if he should bow, speak, or simply vanish into the ground. Lyanna said nothing more. She only walked ahead, leaving Ethan to follow with a heart full of storms. That night, Ethan lay awake in his small chamber. The question burned in his mind again and again. What if she had meant it? What if her eyes had not lied? And if it were true, what could a man like him give to a queen? He thought of her crown, her throne, her people who looked to her for strength. Then he thought of himself, a guard with no title and no claim. The thought made him both afraid and alive in ways he had never known. Days passed, and nothing more was said. The queen ruled as always, firm yet fair. Ethan stood at his post, silent and loyal. Yet in every glance, every word, he wondered if she carried that same question in her heart. He remembered the way she had looked at him, not as a queen to a servant, but as a woman who sought something deeper. That memory clung to him like fire. Ethan did not speak of it to anyone. To share it would be madness. But inside, his soul wrestled with a storm. He thought of the life he once wanted, quiet and plain. Now he saw that fate had thrown him into a path far greater. He did not know where it would lead, but he could not turn away. The queen had asked a question, and though he had given no answer, he knew one day he must. Ethan carried the queen's question in his heart like a secret flame. Each day at his post, he wondered if she remembered her words, or if she had already cast them aside. He guarded her halls, stood by her throne, and walked behind her in processions, yet the thought never left his mind. The more he tried to bury it, the stronger it grew. The palace was not a place of peace. Behind its shining walls, whispers moved like shadows. Noble families plotted for power, each seeking to gain the queen's favor or take it from her by force. Ethan heard fragments of talk as he patrolled the corridors. Servants spoke of feasts where lords argued, and guards traded rumors of secret meetings late at night. He did not know what was true, but he could feel the tension like a storm waiting to break. Queen Lyanna stood tall before her court, but Ethan could see the weight she carried. Her smile often faded when she thought no one was looking. She bore the crown with dignity, yet her eyes betrayed a loneliness few understood. Among the noblemen who sought her hand, she found no trust. Their vows of loyalty sounded empty, and their gifts were nothing more than chains wrapped in silk. She longed for something real, something honest. It was in Ethan that she found such honesty. He never tried to impress her, never spoke of riches or titles. He only stood at his place with steady eyes and a heart free of deceit. She noticed how he treated others, how he showed respect, not just to her, but to everyone. In a world full of ambition, his simplicity shone like light in darkness. One evening, Lyanna called for Ethan to join her again in the gardens. The air was cool, and the moon hung low above the palace towers. Ethan felt his chest tighten as he walked beside her, remembering the question she had asked before. He did not know if she would speak of it again. For a while she spoke only of the kingdom, of the unrest among the lords, and of the trials ahead. Ethan listened, offering little but his quiet presence. Then she asked, "Tell me, Ethan, why do you serve?" He hesitated, then answered, "Because it is my duty, my queen. I was called to guard, and I will not fail." She studied him for a moment, her gaze sharp but not unkind. "Many serve for duty, but in you I see something else. You serve because you care, not for gain but for truth. That is rare." Ethan felt his face grow warm. He had no answer, so he bowed his head. Lyanna did not press further. Instead, she walked on, and Ethan followed in silence. But her words stayed with him, stirring feelings he could not deny. Meanwhile, unrest in the kingdom grew worse. Rumors spread that certain lords were planning to rise against the crown. They saw Lyanna as young and weak, though she had proven her strength many times. In secret, they gathered allies, preparing for a move that could break the realm. Ethan sensed danger in every shadow, his hand always near his blade. One night he overheard two guards whispering about a meeting of nobles. They spoke of plans to force the queen into marriage with a lord who sought the throne for himself. Ethan's blood ran cold. He knew then that Lyanna's freedom was at stake, that her question to him had not been spoken lightly. She searched for someone she could trust, someone who would not betray her for power. Ethan wrestled with fear and doubt. He was only a guard, a man with no name of greatness. Could he stand against the schemes of the powerful? Could he protect the queen not only with his sword but with his heart? Each night he asked himself, and each night the answer grew clearer. He could not walk away. As days passed, Lyanna spoke with Ethan more often. Sometimes it was of matters of the kingdom, sometimes of memories from her youth. He found himself laughing with her at times, forgetting she wore a crown. Yet always, in the back of his mind, the question returned. What if she truly meant to bind her life with his? Ethan's silence haunted him. He had given her no answer before, but deep within he felt one forming. He did not yet have the courage to speak it, but he knew the day would come when he must. For the queen's trust was no longer a simple honor. It had become the center of his life, and perhaps the key to the fate of the kingdom? The kingdom grew restless as whispers of betrayal spread from hall to hall. Ethan felt the change in the air each day he stood guard. The nobles no longer hid their greed with false smiles. Their eyes were sharp, their words sharper, and their gatherings grew more secret with every passing week. The queen remained strong before her court, but Ethan could see the storm building behind her calm face. At night, when the palace was quiet, Ethan often walked alone through the empty courtyards. He thought of her question and the danger that surrounded it. The queen's words were more than a dream. They were a challenge to tradition, a challenge to the power of men who thought themselves above all. She truly meant them. She was ready to defy everything for the sake of truth. Ethan wondered if he had the strength to stand beside her when the time came. One evening, Queen Lyanna called him to her chambers, not as a guard but as a confidant. She spoke in a voice stripped of formality. "The lords press harder each day," she said. "They think I can be forced to bow. They think I can be bought. They do not understand that I will not give my crown to men who care nothing for my people." Ethan stood silent, unsure if she wished for comfort or counsel. Finally, he said, "You are not alone, my queen. Whatever comes, you have those who will stand with you." She looked at him then, her eyes soft with something unspoken. "And will you, Ethan? Will you stand even if the world turns against us?" His heart pounded, but he did not look away. "Yes," he said, "I will. Those words bound him more tightly than any oath he had ever spoken. From that night, Lyanna trusted him with secrets no other guard knew. He learned of letters intercepted, of threats sent in shadows, of bribes offered to those closest to her. The conspiracy was deep, and it grew bolder with each passing day. Ethan realized her life was in greater danger than he had imagined. The bond between them deepened in those quiet hours. Lyanna would sometimes share her memories, stories of her childhood when she was free of duty. Ethan listened, drawn to the woman beyond the crown. She laughed with him, something rare in her heavy life. And in those moments he saw her not as a queen, but as someone who longed to be seen simply as herself. Ethan, too, found himself changing. What had begun as loyalty was now something stronger. Something that kept him awake at night, thinking of her words, her smile, her courage. The nobles' plotting grew darker. One lord in particular, known for his hunger for power, began to gather soldiers in secret. Rumor said he would soon march on the palace itself. Ethan heard of this through a servant loyal to the queen. Fear gripped him, not for himself, but for her. He knew she would never bend, and that made her a target. The queen, however, did not show fear. She faced her council with steady words, making it clear she would not marry for politics, nor surrender her rule to those who sought to use her. Her declaration spread through the kingdom, sparking both hope and anger. To some, she was a beacon of strength. To others, she was a threat that had to be removed. Ethan began to shadow her more closely, never far from her side. His hand rested often on the hilt of his sword, ready for the danger he knew was coming. But the greater battle raged within him. He remembered the night in the gardens, her question hanging like a flame between them. What if she truly wanted him, not just as her guard, but as her partner? Could he bear the weight of her trust, the weight of her crown, and the eyes of the kingdom upon him? The queen gave no answer to the silence he had left her, but her actions spoke. She trusted him above all, even above her own counsel. The look she gave him told him she remembered that her question had never been withdrawn. Each glance tightened the knot in his chest. The kingdom stood on the edge of war, and Ethan knew his choice would soon decide more than his own fate. He had promised to stand with her, but deep in his soul, he felt the moment coming when his courage would be tested. Not only as a guard, but as the man she had asked to share her life. Darkness fell over the palace like a heavy cloak. The lords who had plotted in secret now made their move. It began with whispers of betrayal in the guard ranks, then with shadows creeping into the halls. Ethan felt it before it came. Every instinct told him the storm was near. One night as Queen Lyanna prepared to meet with her council, an assassin struck. Disguised as a servant, he slipped into the corridor with a blade hidden under his cloak. Ethan saw the flash of steel and leapt forward without thought. His sword met the attacker's arm, sending the weapon clattering across the stone floor. The man fled, but the message was clear. The queen was no longer safe even in her own home. Lyanna's council grew frantic, urging her to yield to the nobles' demands. Now, to take a husband from their ranks and secure her throne through compromise. But Lyanna's voice did not waver. I give in to fear. I betray my people. I will not marry for power. I will not surrender to those who scheme against me. Her words echoed in Ethan's heart. He saw her standing tall while others trembled, her courage burning brighter than any crown. He knew then that his duty was no longer just to guard her life. His duty was to stand beside her in whatever trials lay ahead. The nights grew more dangerous. Twice more assassins tried to slip into the palace, and twice Ethan drove them back. His body carried wounds, but his resolve only hardened. Lyanna saw his loyalty, and though she spoke little of it, her eyes told him more than words could. In them he saw trust, hope, and something deeper that gave him strength. One evening when the halls were quiet, Lyanna asked Ethan to walk with her once more in the gardens. The moon hung pale above them, and the air was heavy with silence. She looked at him, her voice low but firm. You have risked your life for me more than once. Why do you stay, when you could walk away and be free of this danger. Voice answer came from the depths of his heart. Because you are worth it. It's not just as my queen, but as someone who carries the weight of so many lives with courage. I could never walk away. Her eyes softened, and for a moment the crown seemed to vanish. She was not only a ruler, but a woman searching for truth in a world of lies. She stepped closer, and though she did not speak of the question she had once asked, Ethan felt its presence between them stronger than ever. The conspiracy soon turned into open betrayal. A band of soldiers loyal to one of the lords stormed the palace gates under cover of night. The clash of steel filled the courtyards as loyal guards fought to defend their queen. Ethan was at the front, his blade cutting through the chaos, his mind fixed only on keeping Lyanna safe. The enemy broke through the outer defenses and charged into the throne room. Ethan fought with every ounce of strength he had, his body aching, his arms heavy. He stood as a wall between the queen and those who sought her life. Blades slashed at him, yet he did not falter. Blood stained his armor, but his will held firm. At last the rebellion was pushed back, the traitors captured or slain. The palace was left scarred, but the queen still stood. Ethan, battered and bleeding, remained at her side. When the battle was over, Lyanna looked at him with eyes full of fire and gratitude. "You have given me more than loyalty," she said softly. "You have given me your courage, and that is something no crown or title could ever command." Ethan could not answer. His voice failed him, but his heart spoke through the silence. He knew then that the bond between them had been forged in more than words. It was written in sacrifice, in trust, and in the battles they had endured together. The kingdom was not yet safe, but a new strength had risen. The queen had proven she would not yield, and Ethan had proven that he would stand with her no matter the cost. Together they had faced betrayal, and together they had endured. Yet one question still lingered in the air, waiting for its moment. What if she truly chose him, not just as her guard, but as the one to share her throne and her life? The dawn that followed the battle was quiet. The palace lay wounded, its stones blackened by fire, its halls marked by blood. Yet the queen still stood upon her throne, and beside her stood Ethan, weary but unbroken. The rebellion had failed, but the kingdom trembled, waiting to see what path would come next. Word of the queen's defiance spread beyond the walls. The common people spoke of her courage, of how she stood firm when the nobles tried to break her. They also spoke of the guard, who never left her side, who fought with such fury that even the strongest knights could not match him. Ethan's name was whispered in markets and taverns, carried on the lips of men and women who longed for hope. In the council chamber, the lords who had not betrayed her pressed once more for a marriage of power. They warned that the throne could not stand on courage alone. They demanded that she bind herself to a noble house or risk losing her crown. But Lyanna's voice cut through their demands with steel. "I will not wed a man who sees me as a prize. I will not give my throne to those who think only of themselves. The kingdom needs truth, not more lies." Her words silenced the chamber, but the question of her future still hung heavy. Outside those walls, Ethan kept watch as always. Yet inside his heart, a storm raged. He had sworn to protect her, and he had done so with his life. But now he wondered if she would ask him again, if the question that haunted his nights would return. And if it did, would he finally find the courage to answer? The moment came sooner than he expected. Before the throne, in the great hall filled with guards, nobles, and common folk alike, Queen Lyanna stood tall. Her eyes swept across the room, then came to rest on Ethan. She did not look away. She spoke so all could hear. "When the blades of traitors sought my life, it was not the promises of lords that saved me. It was not gold, nor titles, nor bloodlines. It was the courage of one man, a man who asked for nothing and gave everything. I will not hide the truth. I'll not let fear decide my path." Then, in front of them all, she asked again, her voice clear and strong. "What if I married you, Ethan? What if I made you not only my guard, but my partner, my equal, and my king?" The hall fell silent. Every breath seemed to stop. Ethan's chest tightened, but this time he did not falter. He stepped forward, his voice steady, though his heart thundered. "If you marry me, I will give you not power, but my soul. I will stand beside you in every storm, not for crown or throne, but because I love you. That is all I have, and all I am. And it is yours." Gasps echoed through the hall. Some nobles looked on in outrage, others in disbelief. But the people, the men and women who had suffered under schemes of greed, lifted their voices in cheer. They did not care for titles, they cared for truth, and they saw it shining before them. Lyanna stepped down from her throne and took Ethan's hand. In her eyes there was no crown, no weight of rule, only the light of a woman who had found the one she could trust. Together they faced the hall, their hands joined, their choice unshaken. From that day forward, the kingdom began a new chapter. The queen ruled not alone, but with the man she had chosen. Some lords rebelled again, but their power broke against the strength of a people united by love and courage. Ethan, once a common guard, became a symbol of hope. He walked the halls not as a servant, but as a partner to the queen, his loyalty now bound by both duty and heart. The question that once left Ethan speechless was now answered in full. And the answer was not just his, but theirs together. For in the end, love had proven stronger than fear. And the courage of one man and one woman had changed the fate of an entire realm.